Hello, hi, how are you? And welcome to another podcast by George. Come on in, I'm glad you're here. The good thing about the show is we have a far-ranging agenda. I mean, I cover everything from music, and all forms of music, hockey, news, politics, and sometimes the two don't meet. I've got listeners that don't like the politics at all. I've got listeners that don't care for the music. I've got listeners that don't care for me, I think. But every now and then we got to circle back here and pick up the baton as far as politics are concerned. And I want to do that right now with this Brett Kavanaugh thing. And to get us started, I want to just give you this story that I saw this morning with one of the principals in the Kabuki Dance involving Kavanaugh out there in Washington. And it's U.S. Senator Chuck Grassley, this article appearing in the Des Moines Register. Grassley, a lifelong farmer in northwest Iowa's Butler County, says he plans to participate in President Donald Trump's $12 billion bailout program intended to cushion the negative effects on trade tariffs on the prices of farm commodities. This is something you get because you're a farmer. Equal treatment for everybody, Grassley said. Wednesday, during his weekly conference with Iowa reporters, he said, it's not something special for Chuck Grassley because he's a senator, or John Tester, a Democrat, U.S. Senator from Montana, who also plans to participate in the federal program. Grassley says he won't know how much federal money he'll receive until his crops are harvested and records are taken to a Farm Service Agency office to find out. Well, you've heard on the show before that I've got a background in farming. I grew up on a poor farm back when most farmers were exactly that, poor, and they required subsidies and supports and assistance to help them out because their farms weren't large enough. There just wasn't enough money in it. Their soil wasn't good enough. Whatever the case is, they just didn't prosper. Well, today I'm here to tell you that one of the biggest changes in this economy in the country that I've observed over the past several decades is the wealth of farming. Of course, it's been consolidated into the hands of a few. So there aren't hardly any poor small farmers, at least in this part of the country, like there was when I was a kid. And if there's any subset of the economy that doesn't need assistance or subsidies, it's farmers. I don't know if you've seen these guys out in the field in the past couple of decades, but they have equipment. Is a total eclipse of the sun when they move across the farm fields. They can do their farming in just a couple of months a year. They take it to the grain elevators in semi-tractor trailer combinations that are like nothing I've ever seen. These beautiful aluminum trailers, brand new cabs. It's just amazing. Farmers are doing fine, and Chuck Grassley knows that, and he's one that's doing more than fine because he's a senator in Washington, and here he is, that old gummer with his hand out, taking this money that was doled out because of the head of his party, Donald Trump, and his stupid tariffs. I mean, it's almost laughable, but it's almost makes you want to cry. It's almost sickening. Well, anyway, Grassley, as you know, is the head of the Judiciary Committee. And, he's at the top of that committee, and he's responsible for a lot of what is going on with Kavanaugh out there in Washington, D.C., the Kavanaugh Kabuki Dance, as I called it, because I knew that regardless of what transpires in these hearings, Kavanaugh is going to get approved by the Republican-dominated Congress. They want this guy. They don't care what he's guilty of. They don't care what he did, particularly what he did in high school and college, and they're going to try to minimize that. And they want to get this guy in here because he's obviously someone with a right-wing conservative agenda for the Supreme Court, and it's a perfect fit for them. And it's really unfortunate for the rest of us. And the Kabuki Dance, the part of that is, it's an ancient Japanese ritual involving theater, and the outcome is determined and known before the play ever starts. And they try to convince you as it goes along that it's uncertain, that it's undetermined, but you find out when it's actually revealed at the end, if you're looking into it at all, that it was predetermined all along. And that's the way this Kavanaugh thing is. I don't know how they can support this guy. Here's my spin on it. It's a little different than some people, but I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, if the Democrats want to pursue Kavanaugh on things that he did in high school and college and alcohol that he consumed and so on, they're going to lose this. And it's probably going to be known here yet today or by the end of this week anyway as to the outcome. But they're going to lose if everybody thinks along those lines. They need to forget that and take a look at Kavanaugh in the hearings televised around the world last week and what he said and did. He lied in those hearings on several different topics. If you watched it, go back and watch it if you didn't. You'll see several. It ain't hard to see. It's not hard to. Number one, the guy looks like he's lying. Number two, the things that he says are obviously lies. He's being deceitful. He's avoiding the issue. And what he says is really alarming. Now, here's a guy that wants to be Supreme Court Justice. Now, this is a position where you're reserved. You're under control. That's what I think of. You're fair. You're even-handed. You look at all sides of the issue. You don't come in with preconceived notions when a lawsuit is brought in front of you. That's what the judiciary, and particularly the Supreme Court, is supposed to be all about. This guy, as I mentioned in an earlier podcast, gives an exclusive interview to Fox News. He appears before Congress and sounds more like a talking head on Fox than he does a guy that wants to be on the Supreme Court. Just a couple of things that are beyond pale. I mean, really, this guy said that he believes the Clintons are behind the move to prevent him from being on the Supreme Court. The Clintons are, I mean, that's right-wing Looney Tooney. What are you talking about? And he's on there saying that the women that are accusing him are being paid millions of dollars by the Democratic Party to do that. Now, here's the thing. A Supreme Court justice is not supposed to pop off and make crazy conspiratorial accusations and claims. That's exactly what a Supreme Court justice should not be doing. That's the way that they should not appear. Everyone in America should be shocked and appalled at what this guy said and did last week in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Instead, at least half of the population appears to be cool with it. I know all the Republicans are. They think that's just fine. And I can't figure these guys out on another level. I'm going to cite a couple of examples here. And it's why they lie in such a disingenuous, such a poor, not only is, in such a poor manner, not only is Kabuki Kavanaugh a liar, he's a very poor one. It's all theater. His acting was so bad last week. He didn't put on the appearance of a Supreme Court justice at all. He looked like a whiny, crybaby, crackhead appearing before a county judge trying to get out of going to jail this weekend. I mean, it was embarrassing. It was horrible. And here's what these guys ought to do. And I'm going to flash back a little bit, go back to the 90s, a situation that we all remember. Bill Clinton. First off, if it was good enough for Bill Clinton to get impeached in the House of Representatives for lying under oath, it's good enough for Brett Kavanaugh to not get on the Supreme Court for lying under oath. That's the first thing. The second thing is with Bill Clinton, I could never understand why that dude, particularly when it was going sideways for him and everything was going wrong and he was going to end up in the ditch over that Monica Lewinsky thing, why he didn't just come out and say, okay, you got me. I mean, I apologize. I was wrong. What I did was had a very cursory, brief sexual encounter with an adult woman that was consensual, and I lied about it because it's the only thing that I would lie about, to be real truthful with you. Now, I'm playing the role of Bill Clinton on this. That's an affair of the heart. It's something that doesn't matter to anybody other, really, than my wife and me, maybe my daughter, maybe my immediate family. But I wanted to preserve my marriage. I wanted to protect my family. It wasn't anybody's business but ours. And so, yeah, okay, I didn't tell the truth about that. Now, let's move on. That's what Bill Clinton should have said and done. He didn't do that. He got impeached in the House of Representatives. His legacy, which was very good 8 years of presidency leading this country, forever tarnished by that. Unfortunate. The other situation that I saw is, and so I'm kind of defending Clinton a little bit on that. I'm not defending this guy. I want to say this right off the top. But it's always struck me this way. And I don't know. Sometimes I think maybe I should be an attorney. You remember that nut Timothy McVeigh? that blew up the Murrah building down there in Oklahoma City. I always thought to myself, when he was going through the trial process, of which he was eventually convicted and executed, so his strategy didn't work. But my strategy, if I'd have been that guy, I would have said, look, I wanted to blow up a rental truck in front of a federal building. And I knew that fertilizer and, what else is that stuff made out of? Diesel fuel, I think. I knew that the combination of that roughly would explode. I saw some information on the internet on it, but there's no Betty Crocker cookbook on exact amounts to use if you want to blow up a truck. So I loaded the truck up with that stuff and pulled it up in front of the Murrah building and blew it up, but I had no idea that it was going to do what it did. I did not think it was possible to blow up the truck and the building by simply parking it outside with the stuff that I had inside of it. And I challenge anybody to tell me that they should have known that. And the reason there's no defense of that idiot is, he blew up that building and killed lots of people, and including a daycare. Little bitty kids and babies inside that Oklahoma City federal building killed by Timothy McVeigh. And here's another little interesting story you might like to hear about McVeigh that I've always carried with me. I don't know why, but if you can get a visual on this, that nut got that Ryder truck, got that ammonia and fertilizer and diesel fuel, whatever it was, the concoction to create the explosion, loaded up the truck, and then what he did to detonate it, and it shows you how unsophisticated it was, and he could have used this in his defense too. It kind of shows he didn't know what he was doing. He ran a fuse, like a Wile E. Coyote fireworks fuse to ignite the stuff, to explode it. So he runs a fuse from the cargo part of the truck, drills a hole in the cab, and runs his fuse out. On that fateful morning in Oklahoma City, he gets in the cab and starts to drive to the Murrah building. Before he takes off, he lights the fuse. Well, again, there's no recipe for fuse lighting. How long it takes a fuse to burn down to ignite something, whether or not it'll blow up, he didn't have a clue. And he's driving to the Murrah building. It's early in the morning, and he pulls up to a forever light. You know what that is? You get to a red light, it's red, and he's sitting there. The fuse is lit. It's burning off, and he's not going to reach his destination. And God, I wished he hadn't, but he's not going to reach his destination if that fuse gets to the end before that light changes. And he's sitting there sweating bullets, sweating bombs, I guess. People are pulling up next to him in their cars going to work, and they're looking over, and here's this guy behind the wheel of a Ryder truck. The cab is full of smoke from the fuse. and they're looking at this guy, smoke billowing out of the cab. And unfortunately for us, he was able to drive it from that point and get it in front of the building, and the rest is history. You know the story. But why he didn't use that defense, and it's based on truth, I don't know. The best defense is always truth. And with this Brett Kavanaugh guy, why he wouldn't go in front of Congress instead of obviously lying about several things and sounding like a Fox television news host with all of these nutty excuses and ideas, why he didn't go in front of Congress and say this. It was 35 years ago. I don't remember it just because it was so long ago, but also, okay, I was drunk. I drank too much. Lots of people do in high school. I did. No excuse. But here's the deal. I don't remember that happening. I had no idea that my accuser, this woman, was so horribly and forever scarred by that encounter. And I apologize. He could put his own take on it if he wanted to, based on what's represented today. But he should have just owned up, been a man, not be a whiny crackhead in front of a county judge, and told the story, and then thrown himself, on the mercy, the Republican-controlled Congress that's going to confirm him anyway, and get this all over with and save us a lot of trouble. I don't know, maybe he was afraid of being sued in civil court by his accusers if he did that. I don't know that he could be, but that's the only reason I can think of for him taking that particular tack. And before I get off this particular rant, let me talk about something else that kind of ticks me off, and it's the Republicans running around the Capitol Hill complaining about how the Democrats are trying to delay the nomination and that the call for further investigation with this Kavanaugh guy is solely because they're wanting to delay it so long that he can't get appointed to the Supreme Court. How ironic is that, and how dumb do they think the American people are? I mean, here was Barack Obama. Barack Obama is a graduate of the Harvard Law School, one of the most highly educated, most articulate, well-liked presidents that we've ever had. And the Republicans in Congress, including, again, Chuck Grassley at the head of that parade, use procedural technicalities and rules to prevent Barack Obama from getting his nominee even heard, let alone appointed. And now they've got this guy that they're rushing through, who is nominated by knucklehead Donald Trump, who has no legal background, who has no basis or experience in doing anything having to do with the law or judiciary other than probably getting sued. And we're supposed to feel badly for them now because they're being delayed in rushing his nomination through after preventing Barack Obama from getting his nominee even a hearing during his tenure. And if he had, maybe we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in right now with Kavanaugh. Are we supposed to just forget that, turn a blind eye to that? Are people not supposed to remember Mr. Tittlehead, Mitch McConnell? And, okay, so let me get to this too. One final thing as far as the rant is concerned. If you'll recall, Chuck Grassley, Mitch McConnell, and those guys were telling us that they didn't need to have a Senate Judiciary hearing and that it was going to happen if it did on a certain date. Well, none of that was true. They had the hearing. They did need to have one. And then after they had the hearing, it was determined by none other than Donald Trump that some additional investigation of Kavanaugh was necessary. Trump is so far right, I don't even know if you can call him right. I mean, he's not even on the political spectrum. And Donald Trump is making that decision. And if it had been up to McConnell and Grassley, there wouldn't have been a hearing. There wouldn't have been any further FBI investigation. So those guys were wrong. Okay, so they're wrong. Okay, well, let me tell you something else. Those guys and guys like them were wrong. Get your calculator out because I'm just going to hit some highlights here. They were wrong about the Vietnam War. They were wrong about the Iraq War and the invasion of Iraq. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the banking institutions and the economic collapse. They were wrong about the economy. They were wrong about climate change. Al Gore predicted that, and they laughed at him. Well, we're living it, folks. They were wrong about that. They've been wrong about every single major issue of our time, going all the way back to Vietnam. And now, here's another, probably in the total scope of things, smaller example of being wrong again. How long are we going to tolerate that? How long are we going to stand for that? Wrong again. The Republican Party. My God, it just goes on and on. Let's stand by. Let's see what happens with the Kabuki Kavanaugh hearings going on in Washington, D.C., and led by none other than U.S. Senator 85-year-old Chuckles Grassley, standing there with his hand out, getting money from the leader of his party that implemented these tariffs. Now, Chuckles can say he was opposed to the tariffs. Doesn't make any difference, dude. I mean, you're partly responsible for Trump being there. So he ought to man up, turn down the money, say it's not necessary, say that he's opposed to it, say that he feels guilty or feels badly because he's partly responsible for the nut in the White House being there. And, you know, maybe he'll get elected again. God, could he get elected again? I suppose he can. Well, that's it. It's all politics today. It's all news. It's all George. Some people like this part of the podcast, and I wanted to do that. We're still going to take it out with a little bit of music. Let's listen to this tune. This is, again, from my good buddy, Bob Pace, and enjoy a little tunage here, and we'll visit again real soon on another podcast by George.